Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Sometimes a single sentence can tell you everything you need to know about a man's soul. Not through what he shouts in anger, but what he casually drops in the middle of a conversation. The subtle remark, the offhand joke, the twisted compliment, they carry more truth than we like to admit. Jung knew this. He spent a lifetime studying how the unconscious mind speaks through our words, often without us realizing. What we repress, we express, not through honesty, but through projection, manipulation, and disguised control. This is why it's not enough to simply listen to what a man says. You have to learn to hear underneath it. Because some men don't hit, they don't scream, and they don't openly disrespect. Instead, they chip away at your confidence one sentence at a time. They call you too sensitive, joke about your flaws, or question your worth under the guise of love. And the worst part? They often don't even know they're doing it. It's not always calculated. Sometimes it's just the unhealed parts of them trying to dominate the parts of you that still trust. But here's the truth. Emotionally unsafe men don't show up as monsters. They often show up as almost good, almost kind, almost committed, almost honest. But in the end, almost love still leaves you empty. So today, let's strip away the charm and look directly at the red flags, not the loud, obvious ones, but the quiet phrases that get overlooked, the ones you've probably heard before and brushed off. We're going to break down 5 phrases that may seem small but reveal a deeper psychological pattern. Because the sooner you recognize the subtle signs of emotional manipulation, the sooner you can reclaim your clarity, boundaries, and peace of mind. Let's get into it. Why words matter. Jung's view on the power behind phrases. Imagine a woman hearing her partner say something as simple as, "You're overreacting, like always." It sounds like a passing comment, maybe even a joke. But for Carl Jung, words like this are never just words. They are doors into the unconscious. Jung believed that the things we say, especially the ones we don't think twice about, are not random. They often reveal what we repress, what we deny in ourselves, and what we haven't dared to confront. According to his theory, language becomes a mirror for the shadow self, the part of us we try to hide, but that slips out anyway, often through sarcasm, criticism, control, or passive-aggressive remarks. And in romantic relationships, these words become especially dangerous, not because they shout, but because they whisper. The deepest wounds in a relationship are often emotional, not loud, not violent, but quiet, slow, and disguised as love. "You're too sensitive. You just want attention. You wouldn't survive without me." These phrases, and others like them, carry more weight than we think. They're not just red flags. They're psychological projections, defense mechanisms, and subtle manipulations all at once. Yet so many women ignore them. Why? Because they're wrapped in charm, because they come with a smile, because they're followed by, "I didn't mean it," or "I was just joking," or "You know I love you." But while the surface feels safe, the words quietly plant seeds of doubt, of fear, of confusion. And over time, those seeds grow into silence, into self-blame, into emotional dependency. Jung teaches us that if we want to become whole, if we want to break free, we need to learn how to listen differently. Not just to what's being said, but to what the words are trying to hide. Because when someone speaks without self-awareness, they're not just revealing who they are, they're revealing what they fear, what they lack, and what they're trying to control. Listening with awareness is not just about protecting yourself from harm. It's about waking up. It's about noticing when love becomes control, when jokes become weapons, and when care becomes a cage. Most importantly, it's about reclaiming your inner authority, the part of you that knows the difference between connection and manipulation, between affection and emotional coercion. The first step to emotional freedom isn't leaving, it isn't confronting, it's hearing clearly, hearing the truth behind the phrases, and recognizing that when someone shows you they're unconscious through words, They're also showing you the limits of the love they're capable of offering, until they choose to face themselves. 5 red flag phrases men say, and what they actually mean. Sometimes, the most dangerous things aren't shouted in anger, they're said casually, during quiet moments, laced with just enough sarcasm or sweetness to make you second-guess your own feelings. That's what makes these phrases so harmful. They slip past your defenses, dressed as jokes or concern, but they carry messages that shape how you see yourself. Jung believed that people unconsciously reveal their shadows through language, and these 5 phrases are prime examples. First, you're too sensitive. This isn't about your emotional state, it's about his discomfort with being held accountable. When a man says this, what he's often really saying is, I don't want to deal with how my actions affect you. Jung would call this projection. He's projecting his own inability to process emotion onto you by making your reaction the problem instead of his behavior. The second phrase, I guess I'm always the bad guy. It might sound like self-blame, but it's not. It's manipulation disguised as self-pity. This phrase twists the situation, shifting blame and putting you on the defensive. Suddenly, you're comforting him instead of addressing your own hurt. It's not accountability, it's victimhood used as a tool of control. The third, you're lucky I'm still here. This sentence isn't love, it's emotional blackmail. It creates fear, dependence, and the false belief that you are somehow unworthy of care. You start thinking, if he's the only one who will stay, maybe I really am hard to love. And that thought alone is enough to keep you stuck in a dynamic that slowly erodes your self-worth. Fourth, no one else would put up with you. This is perhaps one of the most corrosive phrases of all. It's meant to isolate you, to make you doubt your value and question your ability to be loved by anyone else. But here's what Jung would highlight. This phrase actually reveals his inferiority complex. By making you feel small, he temporarily feels bigger. The shadow here is deep insecurity, masked as confidence, weaponized through cruelty. And finally, I was just joking. You're too serious. This one is subtle, but deeply damaging. It usually follows a boundary being crossed, a comment that stung, a jab that hit too close to home. Instead of apologizing, he reframes your pain as a flaw in you. This teaches you to doubt your instincts, to feel guilty for reacting, and to slowly disconnect from your emotional truth. Over time, you learn to silence yourself to keep the peace. Each of these phrases is a red flag, not just because of what they say, but because of what they're trying to avoid: responsibility, vulnerability, true connection. They're not signs of emotional depth, they're defenses against it. And the more you start hearing these phrases for what they are, the more power you reclaim. Because recognizing manipulation is the first step toward building relationships that are rooted in respect, not control. Jung reminds us that when someone speaks from their shadow, it's not your job to heal them, but it is your responsibility to protect your peace. In the end, it all comes down to awareness. Words are not just sounds, they are energy. They can build safety, love, and connection, or they can quietly erode your sense of self. The phrases we explored today may seem small on the surface, but their impact runs deep, and as Carl Jung teaches us, the more conscious we become of what hides beneath the surface, both in ourselves and in others, the less we fall prey to it. You deserve love that brings clarity, not confusion, support, not silence. If a man's words consistently leave you doubting your worth, second-guessing your feelings, or apologizing for your existence, that isn't love, that's control dressed up as care. So take a moment, reflect. Have you been listening to words that hurt while convincing yourself it's love? Healing begins when you choose to hear differently, when you stop making excuses for what your intuition already knows. Love should never make you feel smaller. and no one who truly loves you will joke about your pain, belittle your emotions, or threaten to leave just to make you stay. Jung's wisdom isn't just theory, it's a mirror, a light, and a tool for protection. So the next time someone speaks, listen with your whole self, not just your ears, but your intuition, your history, your heart. That's where the truth lives. Which of these red flag phrases have you heard before? Let's start a real conversation in the comments, because awareness is how we break cycles, and connection is how we begin to heal.